Good evening, and welcome to the April 11th meeting of the Town Council. If you'll kindly rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This evening, Tom Koenig has been excused. Okay. For announcements, our upcoming council meetings on Thursday, April 25th, and Thursday, May 9th, and Thursday, May 23rd, all at 7 p.m. here in the Matthew Thornton Room, are regular meetings of the council. There has been a recount asked for on the council a seat that was just the vote that was just taken this past Tuesday. That recount will occur at 5 p.m. on the April 18th for anybody interested. Okay, something I'd like to announce before I would probably do it at the end of the meeting, but while we have a few people here, I wanted to just recognize Chris Perez, who's worked in our media department over here, and he's waving through the window. He's got to come out, yes.
Chris, come out. This Finley's stealing my thunder. So.
Well, Chris has been with the town for 6 years, and I was reminded that he started as an intern with the high school, and when Nicholas brought him in, he said that he was going to be doing our makeup when we went to high def. Because we really appreciate it. And I knew you were thinking about it, but I didn't know it was happening tonight, so I was reminded.
Yep.
And so we absolutely appreciate it, and I'm sure my colleagues would like to say something, and please feel free.
I will see you soon.
Yeah, definitely.
You'll be missed.
Thank you.
So
No, absolutely.
to the folks in the viewing audience, this is the guy that gives us the hand when the green light is not on the microphone.
I'd just like to say, Chris was my neighbor. He's a hardworking young man. He's, did his college career as well as working here. What a sharp guy. We're going to miss him, and I'm going to miss somebody, as Bill said, signaling when to turn on my mic, too. So, Thanks, Chris. Good luck.
Bill, yes.
Yeah, Chris has done dynamite work for us, and meetings aren't going to be the same, because we'll always see like Chris leaning over, waving the hand to put on his light. But Chris has been a pleasure here. He's been nothing less than the consummate professional. He's going on to a similar pathway in Salem. So I certainly want to, I think like we all do, if I can do it, on behalf of the community, thank you for working here. You've done a great job, and I wish you nothing but health and happiness and personal success with your future, Chris. So thank you very much again. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Now he's waving his hand for me to shut off the okay.
All righty. Eileen, do you have any announcements for this evening?
Okay, dog licenses are due by April 30th. The reason why we tell this often is because a lot of people forget, and then they end up getting a fine and being very angry. So, and I mean very angry, because the fine is not either a fine or a penalty for being late. So dog licensors are due April 30th. To license, the town clerk's office will need current rabies information and a neuter spay certificate if applicable. The town clerk office will be open this Saturday on April 13th from 9 to noon for dog licensing. The Parks and Recreation Department invites you to join them with this Saturday, April 13th, between 10 and 11:30 a.m. for the 27th annual Easter egg hunt at Wasserman Park. There will be 10,000 Easter eggs given out, and the Easter Bunny will be available for photos during the event. For complete details, visit the Parks and Recreation Department website. The 11th Annual Crime Line Magic Show is being held this Saturday, April 11th. What's that?
Should be the third.
Okay, April 13th, from 10 to 2 at the American Legion. This benefits the Merrimack Police Department K-9 unit, Pluto. Is that our new name?
Yep.
Pluto will be on hand performing a demonstration at noon. And I think people should realize that Pluto is not as gregarious as our former dog. He's a working dog. Then we have the Parks and Recreation and Public Works Departments on Saturday, April 20th from 10 to 12. Will show your love for Merrimack by signing up to volunteer at our second annual Community Cleanup Day. Last year, there was an amazing turnout of 304 volunteers representing 28 different groups and families that cleaned up 18 parks, open space, and adopted spot road locations. To register, contact the Parks and Recreation Department at 882-1046. The Public Works Open House will be held on Saturday, May 18th, from 9 to noon at the new highway facility located at 76 Turkey Hill Road. Activities will include a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new facility and the Touch-a-Truck event. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Eileen. All right, this evening, a couple months ago, we had decided to have the PFAS update as needed. And this evening, we have Sarita Croce here to give us that periodic update. Thank you for stopping in, Sarita.
Push it? Okay. Thank you for allowing me to provide you with this update this evening. Beg your pardon? A little closer. How's that? Better?
Yep.
Okay, better. So this evening, I'd like to go over several items. The first will be the MCL development with the state of New Hampshire, activities at St. Gobain property, the GMZ, which stands for Groundwater Management Zone, and as well as some new developments from the state of Maine. Last year, New Hampshire DES developed maximum contamination levels, which are MCLs, which are drinking water limits, for 4 PFAS compounds. These were also groundwater quality standards, and the draft levels that they developed were 38 PPT for PFOA, 70 PPT for PFOS, 85 PPT for PFHXS, and 23 PPT for PFNA. On February 21st, New Hampshire DES announced that the MCL development that occurred last year may change because they actually received a new assessment tool. And specifically, it was an assessment tool that was developed by the Minnesota Department of Health. So at this point, New Hampshire DES is waiting for public comment. So the public comment period on these draft MCLs closes tomorrow. Following the closure of the comments, DES will take the time to review the comments, review the new assessment tool, and come out with a new or draft MCLs. Now, these MCLs will also be considered groundwater quality standards. And I also wanted to point out, as a part of the rule that was adopted, they also are required to develop a procedure for assessing surface water standards by January of 2020. On St. Gobain's front, they've completed several activities. The first one I'd like to talk about is the stormwater evaluation. So on March 15th, 2019, St. Gobain submitted a very lengthy report. I think it was several thousand pages, which compiled all of the stormwater sampling that had occurred from the time that they began their investigation. Some of the major highlights from the report include that the roof drains on the northern side of the property emit the highest concentration of PFAS compounds. They tried to clean out their drains using some high-velocity pressure washers, and what they found was that there was still sediment inside those drains. They also did an evaluation of the stormwater conveyance piping on the property, and they actually cleaned those as well as put some linings inside them. And they found out in subsequent evaluations that there is still some problems, and there is infiltration of groundwater into the stormwater pipes. The roofing material possibly has absorbed or is impregnated with some of these PFAS compounds, and that will be something for possibly a future investigation. Dumpling Brook, which is located on Flatley's property, what the general trend is, the contamination increases as it approaches the Merrimack River. So one possible reason for that might be groundwater contamination, which is something that they're going to be looking at closer. And then the last part of it is that there appears to be very little impact to the Merrimack River. Now, one important aspect of all of this is they are going to submit an on-site investigation report, hopefully by the end of April. And in that report, what Saint-Gobain will present is the investigation that occurred on-site and hopefully what their path forward will be, possibly some remediation activities as well. On the air side, Saint-Gobain in March of 2019 also submitted an air permit application. And in this application, they indicated that they would install what's called a thermal oxidizer to actually treat the emissions from the stacks to destroy the PFAS compounds. Now, the thermal oxidizer will, at this point, what they've identified, will operate at 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit. And in a thermal oxidizer, what happens is it's turbulence, time, and temperature that determines the effectiveness of the breakdown of those compounds. Once the draft permit is issued, DES has said that they will not only have a public comment period, which is required by regulation, but they're also going to pre-schedule a public hearing. On the water side, Saint-Gobain has submitted a permit application in October 2018 to treat the PFAS compounds that are in their processed wastewater. So this treatment system consists of granular activated carbon, and it's in the process of being installed right now. One of the delays for this project was that a reactor tank needed to be constructed, custom constructed, and they're not going to receive that reactor tank until April 30th of this year. So the current schedule is they expect installation to be complete by May 23rd, 2019, initial startup by May 29th, and then they will follow with a 2-month period of actually evaluating the treatment system, collecting samples, analyzing them to make sure that the system is working effectively, and anticipate commissioning to be complete probably in August of 2019. One thing I also want to point out is they did do a treatability study before designing this treatment system. They analyzed for 23 PFAS compounds. The treatability study after treatment with the granular activated carbon showed that all of those compounds were non-detect. So this is very good. Regarding the GMZ evaluation, when we first began this, yes.
Can you just say what that is?
Yes, groundwater management zone. Thank you. So when we first began this process, DES established a preliminary groundwater management zone. And what this groundwater management zone identified was the extent of PFAS contamination associated with Saint-Gobain activities. Subsequent to the development of the groundwater management zone, a number, yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
you.
true.
And there shouldn't be any questions.
Okay, thank you. So subsequent to the development of the groundwater management zone and when this project started, a number of homes were placed on municipal water supply, as well as some point of source treatment systems were put online. So what DES realized as a part of this process is that the groundwater management zone, the groundwater itself, because now you've taken so many homes off of the groundwater system, they're not pumping out anymore, contamination could probably change. So what they've identified is 42 residences, which are going to be sampled as a part of this monitoring plan. About 12 of them are inside the GMZ, and the remainder are outside the GMZ, northwest of the GMZ. And they're going to be sampling those as sentry wells to assess if PFAS concentrations in the groundwater are moving. And if they discover that the contamination is moving off-site, New Hampshire DS will require Saint-Gobain to take contingency actions to protect human health and prevent exposure to contaminated groundwater. The last part that I'd like to talk about is a biosolids update. On March 22nd of this year, the state of Maine issued a memorandum which required all facilities that make biosolids, like compost that we have, to analyze their biosolids for PFOA, PFOS, and PFBS. So PFBS is perfluorobutane sulfonate. The screening levels that Maine has are 2.5 ppb, 5.2 ppb for PFOS, so the 2.5 was for PFOA, and 1.9 ppb for PFBS. So if any of the results comes back or the analysis comes back higher than those limits, then they cannot land apply the biosolids anywhere. New Hampshire DS is aware of this, and they're currently evaluating these recent developments. Just to let everyone know, the only limits that New Hampshire DS currently has for PFOA and PFOS are direct contact standards, and they are 500 ppb for each. That's all she wrote.
Excellent. Anybody have, Barbara?
Sarita, on the air management,
Yes.
do they have a possible completion date for the installation of the RTO, the thermal oxidizer?
So once the air permit is issued, so nobody commences construction unless you get a permit. So once you have the permit, they'll have 1 year
Okay.
to complete installation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sarita, thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. Regarding the amount of PFOAs in the drainage in the north part of the building, correct? The smokestacks are located southerly of that particular drain, and the prevailing winds generally run in a southeasterly direction. So is it fair to say that the roof is sloped with their drainage towards that northerly drain? Because I find it kind of odd that, knowing what I know about the building and the prevailing winds, that drain had a higher concentration than on the south end of the building. So I was just curious.
So I really I don't know the answer to that
Fair
question.
enough.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't mean to get in the weeds. It just was a curiosity kind of question. The other question, and I haven't had the chance to talk to Commissioner Frazee about this. I know that DES has talked about looking at the report that, as you alluded to, that came out of Minnesota, and that they're looking at the 38 parts per trillion as it relates to the PFOA. Minnesota currently has a PFOS standard of 27, and I was wondering, because I don't remember DES saying anything about that, but in your conversations, do you know if that was communicated, that they would be exploring not just the PFOA number, but the PFOS number as well, to be consistent with the state of Minnesota?
So the PFOS number is a health advisory. The PFOA number, which they came up with 35 ppt, is in the actual report, and I think they're looking at all of them.
Okay,
They're looking at all four.
okay.
Anybody have anything further? Nancy?
Just to comment that, again, I appreciate your knowledge and sharing it with
Absolutely.
us. I really do rely on you to be able to help us understand. There's so much research done. There's so many reports. Being able to not only understand the specific content, but also the implications, I think, is what's important for us, and I appreciate that.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much, Sarita. All righty. Great. If anything new and important, please let us know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sarita.
See, this is a problem without a binder. All right. Comments from the press and public, if you'd like to address the council, you could step to the mic or the table here. Seeing no one, this evening we have no recognitions, resignations, or retirements. Our appointment this evening is our annual review with the Parks and Rec Committee, per Merrimack Charter Section 6-6, at least annually. There should be a review with the Parks and Rec Committee. This agenda item is to highlight the committee's significant actions, current projects, anticipated actions, and to raise any concerns the council should know about or act upon. And here's the nicest lady going. Hi, Laura.
Thank you very much, Finley.
Thank you for being here.
Busy week for all of you. Congratulations, Barbara and Lon. And working at the polls was very fun and interesting, and I appreciate all of you are doing, because it does take a lot of time. I've been on the, I didn't plan this very well. Matt was not available for tonight because he's a busy man, as you all know, and I don't know where our committee would be without him. But as chairman the last 3 years, he's just added so much to all our programs and all the investigations and all the ideas, and we serve as an advisory board to Mrs. Cavanell there, and Matt is just wonderful, and he helps us utilize all the recreation property and master plans, and he's a go-getter. So in 2018, we have a wonderful committee right now. We have many new members, and they're all very interested residents, newly learning things. We only have 2 alternate positions open at this time, but anybody can come on. We have a rep from the town council, the school board, the senior club, MYA, and 6 members at large. And we actually have a high school member now, a freshman in high school, Abby, and she always adds a dimension. Ongoing old business is our dog park subcommittee. This group sponsors many fundraisers, the dog calendar contest, which brought in $800. And their goals are all constantly the bark mulch. You need to refresh that. And their future improvements include hopefully a water line and perhaps some lighting at a future date. At this point, they have about $2,400 in the fund, and always out there doing something. In 2018, we spent considerable time working on an online survey for the Merrimack residents. The results of the survey should help us with long-term and short-term goals, and it's available through the town website. At this point, Matt did give me some statistics. We now have 393 surveys, and it's a good survey, and it should help us, and hopefully we'll get you copies of that. But if you have specific questions, I have a copy of the survey right here. But our meeting is next week, and so the committee will be releasing more of those facts at that time. And thank you again for your support for the Wasserman Waterfront. I was glad to see that improving. I believe that the work will start this fall with any luck, according to Matt. And the turf field, well, that didn't pass. Meanwhile, back at the office, Matt is now looking for a new program coordinator. Kirsten Merlino will be serving her last day on next Tuesday. She did find a different job, another job over in Peabody, Mass, I believe. She was awesome and has done a lot for that office, and if you get a chance to look at the programming booklets, she's just a wizard. She even painted the fireplace in the office at the Wasserman Park. I mean, she's just a go-getter. We will miss her, but Matt does have about 90 responses to that, applications. The top 10 he's already looking at, so.
I saw him walk out with the packet. It was about that thick.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So he's got his work cut out for him, because he's also involved, I don't know if you folks know this, but with the medical emergency tent at the marathon on Monday. So that's where he is getting things ready for that for Monday. So
Oh, excellent.
he's a jack of all trades. He never
He
stops.
is.
Anyway.
Eileen has to slow him down occasionally.
Oh, well, I mean, even the office at the park, you know, they did the floors over, painted everything, curtains up, which Kirsten's going to take with her. I was informed. But I've enjoyed working with her, so I'm sure we'll get another good
Excellent,
coordinator.
yep.
They seem to be. As far as, let's see, yeah. So programs for the spring, certainly Eileen had mentioned Saturday with the Easter egg hunt. It's always over in about an hour and a half, but it's an interesting, at least we're not in the snow this year. Last year, it was a little crazy. Summer camp is proceeding very well. At this point, we already have, to date, 777 camp enrollments. Last year was our highest enrollment ever, and currently we're about 45% ahead of where we were last year.
Wow.
So that's become very popular. And personally, I think a lot of it is the food program, kind of eliminates that part of it. And then the function hall, improvements continue to be made at the function hall. The tile floor was replaced by carpeting, which has helped the acoustics. And I believe that Rotary is proposing some help there with acoustic walls, that portable kind of things like they have at St. John Newman. So that's a good thing coming. Meanwhile, but that's going to help our year-round activities there, and if you look even at the programming, there's lots of things going on for all ages at the function hall. But right now, we've had about 6,200 rentals this year to date, which is great, because last year it was about 2,400, and before that it was 1,200. So we're kind of doubling it every year. So that speaks for itself.
Yep.
It's a great
Excellent.
facility. And if you have any questions, let me know. I can ask Matt, but I'll see him next Wednesday at our regular meeting also. So I should have timed this a little differently. I was available, but he wasn't. But Becky's good at this, so.
You did a wonderful job nonetheless.
Yeah, thank you, Bentley.
Anybody have
Any
any
questions?
questions here?
I just want to explain, chuckling, when you said bark mulch for the dog park.
Yeah.
I just
Oh,
couldn't
yeah,
resist
bark
bark
mulch.
mulch.
Well, it's very
There
special.
was a reason for our laughing,
Bark,
I'm
bark.
sorry.
Oh, no. That's the way I go.
Shame.
Well, it's special bark mulch. But I enjoy the committee. There's a lot of young blood, people who want to know about Merrimack, and I think it's a great committee right now.
Fantastic.
But my term is up this year, so we'll see, because they're not ready to chair yet.
No, well, good for you.
You need some mature blood on there.
Perfect.
Any questions, or?
Bill?
Yeah, Laura, thank you for chairing Parks and Rec, and the new blood that you talk about. I think from
Oh.
council's perspective, we were very excited to see some new faces join the Parks and Rec Committee and get involved, so that certainly was exciting. As you know, the council will be having their annual retreat,
Uh-huh.
and is there anything that Parks and Rec has talked about that the council should be taking a look at in terms of
question.
growth, improvement, redevelopment, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a Wasserman Park, it could be at any of the other parks in town, maybe even Kids Cove or something like that. So is
And I
there
think
anything that comes to mind?
I think that's what we're going to really talk about next week, too, is what are our next goals, because we want to work on that with you. And so I can let you know further what the group comes up with, because some of it is circular, from years before, but it still exists.
Right.
And we welcome any ideas, so we will keep you posted on that, for sure.
I think from a policy perspective, the council has taken, or I shouldn't say taken, the council has been very proactive
Oh,
as it
yes.
relates to improving the quality of our parks in our community.
Yeah.
I think I don't like to speak for my other colleagues, but for me personally, I want to make sure that we're still moving forward
Absolutely,
so that
absolutely.
people have a place to congregate and recreate and
Absolutely.
that kind of
I
thing.
think the skateboard park will,
Well, I'm-
that's all.
I'm in-
that's
I'm in full
ongoing.
agreement in agreement with you on that, so.
And it'll be interesting to see what the different properties and things like that, Jill, but those are all. I think the tennis courts too, I'm not sure what the status is, but I think those are things, and I will let you know as soon as.
That would be
At the
great.
next meeting. 'Cause-
That'd be
And
great.
when is your annual retreat? Is that-
We haven't decided yet. We have to seat
You gotta
a
get
new
through this.
counselor and
Yeah, you gotta get
change
through this.
leadership, so it'll be a couple months, so.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all your work too, Barbara.
Paul's reminded me that last year was June, and
Yeah.
it gives us enough time to get everything together and so
Right,
on.
and we should have more results on the survey too.
Yep.
Laura, thank you.
Thank you.
Peter?
Laura, first of all, thank you.
Hi.
You did a great job this past year as our chair, as you always do, and your
Thank you.
motivation and everything. And I just, as our representative on the Parks and Rec, want to say what a great group of folks we have on there. It's a full committee, and they're all very motivated,
Best I've seen.
very interested in what each one of them represents and does. And I just want to publicly say thank you to them, too. And-
Absolutely.
And as Counselor Boyd said, we, in discussion on what some goals are, and I know the possibility of docks were brought up,
Correct.
dock replacement and some other things, and I think
Exactly.
field space is always
Oh, yeah.
an issue.
Always.
I know Tom was helping out that with his connections in MYA as well, so.
And the secretary.
But thank you.
Thank you, Peter, and it's great to have you on board, too. Yeah, it's a lively group, and if you do come to the Easter egg hunt, or any of those are the things I like to do as a almost retired teacher in town. I'm amazed at all the young families. It's drawing all the young families, and there's a lot of them, and they don't know about so many of the things, so it's important to keep the communication out there.
Yeah, it's always great turnout for the different functions you put
Oh,
together.
It's
Amazing
it's
some of the
unbelievable.
numbers you hear.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Winter Carnival was
Right.
great. Haunted Ride was great.
Yeah.
And Matt's so good at coordinating Boy Scouts and pulling them in with their projects with lighting and
Yes. Yeah.
volunteers from Interact at the high school. And so
Fantastic.
it's there if people want to hear it.
Yep, no, that's out of this world. Is everybody all set? Good. Laura, thanks so very
Yeah,
much.
Thank you very much. I can't believe I'm so nervous.
I can't believe you are. Are you kidding me? Look.
She and I were at the polls together, and I said I'd keep on smiling at her during her presentation so she'd be less nervous. You did very well.
Yeah, they do a great job. All righty. Next on the agenda, we have no public hearings, so we have an update from our legislative delegation. Or part of it.
Good
Rosemary.
evening. Thank you very much, and congratulations to you, Barbara, and to Lon, and for the town council for a successful election. I'm very happy to have Senator Shannon Chandley join us this evening. And that's important, too, because we're at a point in Concord where we're switching bills. So the Senate's passing on to the House their bills, we've passed on to theirs. Today, the House voted on the budget, that's going over to the Senate, so it's appropriate that she's with me today. What I want to do tonight is just highlight some of the things from the House budget, and I've highlighted some things that I think pertain to Merrimack, which may be of interest. And then just to give you some preliminary numbers. And I also really want to thank Eileen Cabral for her time Friday. I was meeting with her by phone and with Matt Chevanel about our new education funding formula and how that would impact Merrimack. So thank you very much. I'm sure it won't be the last conversation we have. Yeah, okay. One thing I want to, before I go through some of the budget highlights that I want to point out to people, is it's really important for everyone to understand that local property tax and the state budget are very tightly linked. You can't look at them in isolation or two isolated spending budgets, because right now, this year, Merrimack gets $15.58 million in education funding, and that has a huge impact on our property tax. If we didn't have that, it would really increase our rate. And so when the state cuts funding to local municipalities, it increases our property tax. And so I want people to really understand that when the state increases its budget, it's not money that's kind of being spent away from us. It's usually money that's coming back to us, and that's the case with this budget. So I've just highlighted a few things. I won't go over everything. But we do have, we've approved today 12.5 million in revenue sharing. So I have the table, Eileen, which I'll give you, but for Merrimack, that means that should this budget pass, in next year, Merrimack is scheduled to get $117,782. So that helps. We also are in the budget providing $160 million over the biennium in additional education aid, including full-day kindergarten and stabilization grants. What this has done is the House has approved a new tax to join dividends and interest. It's adding capital gains in with the existing dividends and interest tax of 5%. What we did with this is that the revenue from that, which is estimated to be $160 million, would be distributed to towns through education funding. Merrimack is sort of at the cusp of this formula. At the minimum, through this, we'll be getting $266,628 more additional dollars than we have now, and a little bit more in 2021. Although depending on the equalized valuation of the town, that may go up a lot. It could be as close to $2 million. It depends what numbers we have. It's going to be dependent on enrollment. Some of the special ed enrollment, free and reduced lunch. There's several factors in that formula that will come out to play. But so Merrimack's sort of at the cusp of this formula. We can get nearly $2 million, or it would run what I just said, about $266,000. Getting back to that capital gains tax, what we did with that is increase the exemption. So a filer, like my husband and I just paid our dividends and interest tax to the state. The exemptions on that have been more than doubled. They've gone from $2,400 to $5,000. So what that means is someone would have their first $5,000 of dividends, interest, or capital gains would be exempted from that tax. People who are 65 and older have an additional exemption of $7,500 per person. So there could actually be a retired couple would have $25,000 of that DI and capital gains tax exempted. So what we've really tried to do is to support and strengthen the middle class, that those people wouldn't be burdened by this tax, and actually they would actually even see a savings in the tax that they would have otherwise had. Then we've also provided an additional $19.3 million in building aid, school building aid, and an extra $9 million to support special education costs, which is important in Merrimack as well. We've also provided $20 million to eliminate the development services wait list and provide 2.5% increase for providers. This is something that we have heard over and over and over again by social service agencies and organizations in Hillsborough County, particularly in Nashua, that there is such a tremendous wait list for developmental disabled families in getting services. And so that's how we address that. I think those are the main things. I've got a few other things. Hold on, by division. We're distributing $137.6 million in room and meals tax to go back to local towns. And I talked about that $12.5 million in cost sharing, revenue sharing that's going on. There was also a bill that passed the House, which I think has been misunderstood, that I want to explain to you. We did pass a bill that would allow municipalities to add a $2 fee onto room rentals, hotel rentals. I don't think it's something that would be applicable to Merrimack. If the town council wanted to entertain that, they could. But primarily that bill is to address communities like Hampton Beach and Laconia, where during the year they see a huge influx of people coming in either to the beach or to Bike Week, and it saps a lot of their resources that they need for emergency services, police and fire. And they have a very difficult time covering those services in their budget because you've got a small town, and for a short period of time during the year, the population explodes, and they wanted to have a way to help recover some of the costs that they're spending for that. So this it's a local option. It's enabling legislation that would enable communities to collect an extra, I think it's up to $2 fee. And I think, here's some other ones. I talked about the adequacy grant. We've also changed the way we fund kindergarten. Right now, kindergarten is funded as a part-time or half-day kindergarten, and it's tied in with the Keno revenue that drives how much money. We voted to include those kindergarten students full-time, which Merrimack is anyway, put them in with the grade 1 through 12 population. So when we look at the number of students enrolled for the purpose of calculating adequacy education funding, we're including those kindergartners in there. And I think that I talked about special ed. So, we've also provided more money to fully fund career and technical education programs. And we've also added some money into, it was $1 million into the program called the Running Start. And this really helps our school district costs because it allows students to take classes at the community college level for credit. And so where a school wouldn't really necessarily have to provide that course, a student could take it at the community college level. So those are pretty much the highlights I had. I'm going to pass it on to Shannon because this isn't final. She can give a perspective of the Senate and also highlight some things going on there. Oh, I'm sorry, Eileen? Yes.
You mentioned rooms and meals. Do you have a number specifically for Merrimack, or did that increase, or was that a?
No, I don't have that broken out, Eileen.
Okay. All right. And one other thing, I can't remember the name of it, but the wastewater grant that we talked about.
Yes. I do have what we've done, because we have applied for that grant, and the fund that it comes from is under pollution control. And the current funding for this year is essentially $7.6 million. In our House finance, that goes up to $8.8 million. So that behoves us well as one of the applicants for those grants. Especially where we do have more, we're going to have more spending on that wastewater treatment plant. There'll be more state money available to apply for.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Shannon Chandley. I know many of you, and I just wanted to take a minute to introduce myself to those of you whom I have not interacted with. I am the state senator for District 11, which I'm very honored to represent Merrimack among the 4 towns, Merrimack, Milford, Amherst, and Wilton. This is, as Rosemarie said, it is crossover. It is when the nearly, over 1,000 bills that we had, those that have passed have gone to the other body. So we are receiving bills from the House, and they are receiving bills from the Senate. They just passed their HB 1 and HB 2, the budget bill and the trailer bill. And as you know, a budget is a plan, and this is one step in the plan. The governor introduced his budget. The House is drawing up, has voted on its budget, and it will come to the Senate. The Senate budget is, I am sure, going to look somewhat different from the House budget and somewhat different from the governor's budget, but eventually we will all get together and hopefully we will find a workable budget for the people of the state of New Hampshire, and I will be advocating for the people of this district, you can be sure. There aren't any bills that I'm necessarily going to highlight tonight. I just wanted to let you know that I am working on a number of items. I serve on 3 committees in the Senate, Judiciary, Executive Departments and Administration, and Health and Human Services, and we're all 3 committees are very, very busy. I am happy to meet with anybody at any time to talk about specific concerns, and if you would like me to come and talk about any specific legislation, I'm happy to present regarding specific legislation. I guess I will mention one bill in particular that will be having its House hearing. I did sponsor a bill to remove the tolls, along with several members of the House delegation. They were co-sponsors to remove the toll at exit 11. It passed twice in the Senate. It passed first out of the Policy Committee with a unanimous roll call vote, and it passed out of Finance with a on a voice vote. It is in the House now. It's certainly, it'll have a hearing, I believe, in a couple of weeks, and we'll make sure to let folks know when that is. But I think it's really important that your reps hear from you, even though I think most of them will support this. But if you have concerns or interests, we'll be working for you to get that bill through. But anything, any other bill that you would like me to report back on, anything, or just pick up the phone and call me. My number is on the, you can find my number on the Senate website as well as my email, and I'm happy to leave it with you. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Representative Rung. Just a couple of things. First of all, I don't think there's anybody on this council, and correct me, anybody here, is not happy to possibly see exit 11 tolls go, or exit 10 possibly in the future. Also, a couple of things that concern me, and I'm going to bang the drum with our state reps, and now that I've got you here, is the turnpike widening coming through soon. I'm really concerned that the DOT, I hope they address the sight and sound barriers for our neighborhoods that border the turnpike. I believe we sent a list to the DOT of our concerns. They came and gave us a presentation. And, I think that we have so many neighborhoods that really are right up abut that highway. And I'm hoping that they don't do what they did in Bedford over the toll and put up a stockade fence and say that's good enough. So if you folks could keep an eye on that, that would be great. Also, while I got you here, Senator, you mentioned you're on the Judiciary Committee. Our bail laws, are there any legislation that are coming forward? Because currently the state of our bail laws, I'm deeply concerned.
So yes, there is. There was Senate Bill 314 passed maybe a week ago, and I will say I cannot give you the specific details right now, but I will tell you that that came out of Judiciary Committee. It was a very, very wonderful process, I will say. There were two bills, SB 91 and SB 314, and they both looked to make some changes to current bail laws. And people worked very hard to work together. And we, I can't give you the vote off the top of my head, but it was a very bipartisan effort working with all stakeholders. We met the people who were, I was not part of the group that met to come up with the plan, but it was folks from the chiefs of police, people from a number of stakeholders, people from the public defenders, and senators. And
yeah, and just only because I work at the Sheriff's Department, and the job I do is I transport prisoners. We're seeing people that are getting arrested 4
Daily
times and getting released.
Yeah.
We have people that are not showing up for court blatantly. They get brought back, and they keep getting let go. So just something to keep in mind.
And I will tell you that SB 314 did address that. We did hear from a number of chiefs of police as well as other people in law enforcement that there were frequent failure to appear, people coming in and out of the system. So we did make every effort to address that.
I mean, it's become a blatant disregard for the people that we have incarcerated. They know they're going to get out. They just show up and they know they're going to walk away. So, all right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Could you help me understand, how does that do with bail?
sorry?
Where's the connection of bail versus they get out?
Changes in bail laws have occurred that, and I don't want to get off into
I
the,
understand,
but
just real quick.
that are allowing, the judges are letting individuals go more frequently when they shouldn't. Originally, bail laws were meant a threat to the community or flight risk.
Okay.
And, you know, when you have somebody that's committed 4 crimes in a week and each time they get getting released, you know,
Without
or you
bail?
have somebody that's holding 100 bags of heroin and they get out on PR bail. I don't know about anybody else, but somebody possessing and selling heroin is a threat to our community. So-
Personal reconnaissance.
I know that, but the people at home might not.
Personal
it's good.
recognizance bail, sorry about that, thanks, Bill. So that's what's happening right now, and I think that there needs to be some guidance to the judges to address the issues, so, thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
And Pete, I have bad news for you. I'm really sorry about this, but it did come up Tuesday during our House Finance briefing, but there is no additional funding for sound barriers. You may know now that there are many communities that have qualified for sound barriers because of highway widening throughout the state. And these are projects that were completed years ago. But even though they qualified for sound barriers, there was never any funds available to actually construct them. And that funding has not been increased. So I am not optimistic that the neighborhoods in Merrimack who've qualified for sound barriers upon the widening of the turnpike are going to get them, at least not in the near term. That would be something we could prioritize for the next biennium.
I was gonna say, because this project doesn't actually break ground until 22, correct, something like that?
Yeah, I was going to say that 21, 22.
Yep.
So do you think there's a possibility that could change by then?
I think it could change, it won't, unless something happens with the Senate or the governor, they add that funding in or increase that funding. It's not going to happen for the biennium, the 2020 to 2021. Now, after that, it may be something, well, I should say something that may be able to look at is to try to find another mechanism for the funding than the way we've always done it. It's one of those areas of the budget that when it needs to get balanced, it's one of the easiest things to cut because people don't see it. It doesn't affect everybody equally, but it really affects those people who need it.
Right. Peter, Paul had mentioned that it's next year, 2020,
Thank you.
they'll start
Thank
cutting.
Yeah.
The, I didn't know if Wendy would be here this evening. I wanted to kind of speak to a big quote that she had in the paper just a week ago. I believe it was Health and Human Services did a report on a study looking at, I can't remember, 20 different cancers, maybe a little bit more than that. And each one of them, it said that it wasn't a significant statistical variation, that Merrimack's cancer rates were not really different than other communities that didn't have the PFOA, PFAS problem that we've had. Her words were that dogs and people and kids
Kids and pets.
children and pets are dying in Merrimack. And when that makes it around the world with the internet, it really is, it's disappointing. I wish that she would think about it, and if you could pass that on for me, we would appreciate it, I'm sure. It's just, it's not good to do that with the internet. If we didn't have the internet, it'd be a different game. We'd hear it.
Well, it was in the newspaper,
Right.
and she was identified as a rep from Merrimack.
Correct.
And I totally concur with you.
Yeah.
I was upset with that, too. Now, it doesn't mean that you could say, my fear is that children could be dying. But it was, and if it was a misquote, she should make it clear that it's a misquote. But I think she did a great disservice to Merrimack as a rep, saying that children and pets are dying in Merrimack.
Yeah, I agree with you. The hyperbole and the exaggeration outside the context of data it's not helping anyone. One of the things that will be a help to Merrimack is that we did approve a bill to have a health study done, environmental and health study, and that's where we really need to put our energy and our focus, because we need to look at the data and know for sure if there is a causation. So I'll definitely send that message on to her.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It may have been just the moment that the reporter was questioning. I'm not sure, but I do appreciate it.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Does anybody have anything further? Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to dovetail off of Councilors Harrington and Chairman Rothhaus, I was very disappointed because I think we've worked very hard in this community to make Merrimack a great place to work, live, and raise a family. The things that we've done to maintain quality of life and attract businesses, and rhetoric such as that does, from where I sit, does not reflect nicely on what we've worked over several years here in this community. So that's all I'm going to say. Getting back to the education piece as it relates to Keno, the lottery has spent a ton of money promoting Keno and highlighting the fact that Keno proceeds would be dedicated to kindergarten. And I'm just curious to know philosophically why the pivot away from dedicating those funds to kindergarten and putting it, at least from my understanding, it's going into the general education fund. I just would like to
Yeah.
know what the thought process was.
Okay, well, Keno has not met the revenue expectations that were projected. It's fallen quite short. And so the Keno revenues are still going into the Educational Trust Fund, but they'll be dispersed according to the grant, not specifically to defraying costs of kindergarten. We want to make the funding of K through 12 more predictable and more reliable. And linking Keno up to a specific program like kindergarten it's not helping us because we can't project the revenues, especially when they're falling so short after the first year and into the second year. But they're still being dedicated to education. It's just not specific to the kindergarten program.
And then to pivot to the DOT issue with the widening of the turnpike, and I agree with Council Albert. The thing that fundamentally bothers me about the DOT is they had a public meeting that was packed with people that are directly impacted by this widening, and to not even try and budget money to mitigate the impact that they're creating. Now, I understand they got to widen the road, and I can't argue with that. They're creating the impact on the neighborhoods, and for them not even to consider, not even to try and budget monies to put along that stretch of roadway as it runs from Wire Road all the way up to the Bedfordtown line it's very disingenuous from where I sit.
I agree with you.
And it's not the first time that we've had in this community that we've had problems with the DOT. The level of, and I hate talking like this, but the level of arrogance that comes out of the Department of Transportation as it relates to my community is vile, absolutely vile. I mean, I'll give you a good example. Executive Drive, 9 years, we've been trying to get that light eliminated. 9 years. We got an assurance that that light would be gone. Guess what? That light is still sitting there, and you still have traffic backing up on the turnpike, going all the way down Greeley Street to DW Highway, and it's causing accidents, and it's causing problems. And the DOT refuses to do a darn thing about it because, well, it's their fight, then we'll remove it when we feel it's humanly fit to remove it. It's that level of arrogance that I can't stand from that department. It took an arm and a leg down on 101A at Craftsman Lane to get the improvements that we wanted to get done down there. And it was a fight, but they agreed to it, thank God. But that's the point that I would get across to both of you, is that when we've got people here in our community, in community development, in Department of Public Works, that are calling them saying, we're trying to fix this problem, we need your help to fix the problem, we know how to fix the problem. Hey, we're willing to do it for you. We just need you to sign a piece of paper that says, yeah, you can go ahead and do it. The fact that I can't get the DOT to give our town a piece of paper to do it it bothers me.
Well, I'll tell you, Bill, first thing I do tomorrow is I will call them and set up a meeting to meet with them and ask them to get the light down. And if they don't do it, I'll introduce a bill, and that will move them along, I think. Don't worry, I'll make that a priority first thing tomorrow to give them a call.
And I don't mean to get frustrated with both of you, but, I don't know if you've ever been down there at that particular hour. I can't begin to tell you, I don't get a lot of phone calls, but I do get them every now and then saying, can you do something, or put a police officer down there and start ticketing them for cars that are blocking the intersection there.
No, I'll definitely follow up.
I appreciate
I'm
it.
glad you brought it up. Thank you very much. And I definitely share your frustration over the funding for those sound barriers. I was at that public hearing at the high school, and I spoke about it because in my neighborhood, it doesn't at my street, but on Roundtree and the end of Davis, you can't hear yourself talk now. And they have a formula that they used to calculate if a neighborhood qualifies. And why have a formula if you're not going to fund it? You're using the formula to say, yes, you're entitled to this, but we're not going to give it to you. It doesn't make any sense.
Representative, when you're doing a noise analysis in the morning between the hours of 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., and in the evening from 4 to 6, when it's bumper-to-bumper traffic, yeah, your noise problem is not going to be significant. Have them do an analysis at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, and I think that you get very different numbers, because you're going to go from a 2-lane highway to a 3-lane highway overnight. You're going to increase the sound because the flow of traffic, this is why you're widening the DOT, so obviously noise is going to increase. If you want that peak, that ambient noise output, you got to do it in the off-peak hours, because that's the only way you're going to be able to get the right data that you need to be able to justify putting up the barriers. The neighborhoods deserve to have barriers there.
Yes.
Thank
No,
you.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm sure you know. Barbara, and then...
Yeah, I was just going to hop on the same thing as well, because I brought that up when the DOT came, that a lot of the widening that happens as you drive from exit 10 up to the Bedford Turnpike, just look at where those yards are and where the houses are. And now imagine what that's going to look like when we add and increase that by another lane. Literally, the edge of that highway is abutting people's yards. And so not to have any kind of barrier there, maybe a chain link thing, so it would be, that isn't going to do it. And then I worry not only about the sound, I worry about those yards that don't have fences, because we have kids that are living all along there. So it's incomprehensible that they are not going to put some kind of sound barrier up there to help these people with the noise and the safety issues that are going to evolve from this.
Right. And just to clarify, there are neighborhoods, and I know the one off of Wire Road, the Berkeley Street Clay area, there was a mistake done that the state had when they were doing the testing, and it was retested and they did qualify. And it really is unfair to qualify a neighborhood, but then you don't put the funding in for it. It's the outcome is the
Would that
same.
neighborhood have grounds to go after the state? Since they don't even meet they meet the criteria and the state's not responding to their own criteria?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, neighborhood?
It's kind of a bait and switch attitude.
Eileen?
I would love to talk to one or both of you about the issues that I'm having with DOT.
Snow plowing?
One having to do with a business that employs about 1,100 people in Merrimack, a really stupid, ridiculous thing that they won't plow this particular section of road, refuse. And then the other one is I cannot, for the life of me, get any numbers on the revenues and expenditures and the bonds for either exit 10 or 11. It's extraordinarily frustrating. And
Well-
everyone's pointing fingers at everyone. No, that's district this is highway, this is that. So if at one point I called the governor's office and I said, doesn't DOT think they work for somebody?
I'll share the data that I have with you, and if that isn't sufficient, we can talk about
I'd
getting.
really appreciate it,
Certainly.
yeah.
And I'll let you know when that meeting that I'm going to set up with them is scheduled. So I'll send you all an email if there's anything you want to add on to the agenda, in addition to the concerns that Councilor Boyd raised. I'd be happy to add them on.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Is everybody else said anything further? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Representative, thank you. Happy Easter to you and your families.
Righty, next on the agenda is Town Manager's Report.
Okay, update on the MS4 municipal stormwater, separate stormwater systems, sewer systems permit. will be nearing the end of year 1 on June 30th, 2019. The work for this year has focused on creating a new stormwater management program for the town, which involves setting up several different control measures to include public education and outreach, public involvement and participation, illicit discharge detection and elimination, or IDDE program, construction site stormwater runoff control, post-construction stormwater management, and new development, good housekeeping, etc. There are 3 stormwater coalition groups in the state, and they have joined forces and divided out the work on each of the control measures. And I think that when we talked about this before, and Dawn came in, we talked about how this year and next year we'll be doing a lot of information gathering. We're at the various outfalls. So Dawn is really busy and trying to keep up with that, and marking all the outfalls in town. So work on the Bedford Road Bridge between Pearson Road and Catskill Road began on April 1st. Clearing and grubbing work is being worked on, as well as the demolition of the old Dara Bridge. The next phase will be to construct the bypass road and relocate utilities. Alternating one-way traffic will begin June 1st and will continue until about December 1st. On April 2nd, the Planning Board began discussions on a comprehensive overhaul of the town's site plan regulations. Workshop discussions will take place over the next few months on the draft regulations in the hopes of adoption this summer. Public input is appreciated, and the draft regulations can be found in the Planning Board webpage under News and Events. The Community Development Department welcomes Rhonda Fleming, met her, Finley, as a new full-time department secretary. Prior to joining the Community Development team, she was a project manager for a large health insurance company. Thank you.
I used to work with Rhonda at that large health insurance company. Oh, she's wonderful. She's wonderful, dynamite, great hire. Good job, Tim.
Perfect. All righty, this evening, we have no consent agenda nor old business. First item under new business is the council to consider the acceptance and expenditure of a donation from the Merrimack Lions Club in the amount of $445 to the Parks and Recreation Department to be put towards Summer Camp Scholarship Fund pursuant to RSA 3195 and Charter Article 8, Section 15. Motion by Peter Albert.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councilor Boyd. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Lions Club have always been generous, and this is a great donation because there are.
Pete, you might. So you're going to say that all over again.
Thank you, Chris. But no, the Lions Club has been very generous, and it's a great donation. They're annually helping out those in need who can't get their kids to the scholarship. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. 6-0-0. With the thanks, of course. Item number 2, council to consider appointing Rod Buckley to the Zoning Board of Adjustment as a full member pursuant to Charter Article 4, Section 8.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Boyd,
Second.
seconded by Barbara. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Rodney Buckley has done yeoman's work in this community throughout the years, and I'm very happy that he's moving up from an alternate position to a full-time member position, and I know he's going to continue to do the type of work and diligence that he brings to all their meetings. So thank you, Rodney, for stepping up.
Thank you, Bill. And we actually have a couple people, one has been interviewed and one other is coming in for interviews for the alternate position that Rod had left. So that'll be very good. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 6-0-0. You start this way or that way? All righty. Item number 3 under new business. Council to discuss and consider the recommendation of eliminating the current critter problem and to prevent future problems at the Reeds Ferry Fire Station, Station 3, due to some recent damage to the town's equipment stored at the station. Eileen?
I want to kind of sum up the situation, why this is on the agenda. As you know, the Station 3, is what it's called, is not in that great condition. We currently use it as storage, and for vehicles as well, to be fair. But as the activity is increasing and very disruptive to the area, all of the critters are, you're looking for a new home. So it's caused us a problem. So the discussion was, we got a price to fix the area, which they'll get into in more detail, but it's cost $16,000. And I just have a problem with that. It's just an awful lot of money for a building that is basically a storage facility. So I wanted to get some guidance from you before we went ahead. We have the money, but I wanted to get some guidance from you on what your thoughts are on this.
Tom?
So, is there an insurance claim going in? An insurance claim will go in, so.
Yes, but only for the stuff inside.
Right, but
That's not the
gonna-
expensive part.
But the 16,000, it's not total $16,000. The insurance will cover, and what the insurance doesn't
No,
cover.
this is
then
for-
we'll-
No, it's 16,000 minus about 1,200 for
So the
equipment,
insurance is gonna give us $1,200.
or
I'm
less,
just going by what Packet says, so.
or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul?
I heard from the insurance company late this afternoon. Haven't get a chance to talk to you about this, Eileen. Our policy has an exclusion for critter damage. So there won't be any
All right.
insurance. I have yet to go with an appeal, but right now, because of that exclusion, doesn't look like we'll be getting any insurance money for this.
Good evening, gentlemen. Bill?
Have we approached Mr. Flatley? Have we had a conversation with Mr. Flatley? Because based on the memo that I'm looking at from Paul, he writes, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Paul, but you write, with the construction of the new apartments, it appears we have a critter problem. So there's an indirect impact, and I'm wondering, have we reached out to Flatley?
No, we haven't, but it's something I'm considering.
Really?
Okay.
Because,
Okay, I was
no,
thinking it was a joke. I didn't
No.
realize.
No, I'm
No.
not joking, Mr. Chairman.
Because at one point, I believed he talked about helping to get the back of the facility looking better for his residents.
Correct.
So, yeah, very, very valid point. I'd be happy to talk to him.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll get the whole 16.
No, but
Good luck.
it's a conversation.
You might be surprised.
They're just looking for a better place to live. Peter?
Okay, now that we've identified this problem, and we want to address it, going forward, I'd be interested to know, are we going to start monitoring this building more to, walk through it and check the equipment to make sure that nothing else is going to
Let me
be?
go through this, I'll probably answer all
Right.
your questions.
I'm sorry, what?
Suspecting so.
It's the
Let's
presentation,
hear the
we'll just jump the
presentation,
time.
so
Okay,
we can.
beautiful, thank you.
And then we can do questions. I would just, about Station 3, just a quick history on, it was constructed in 1972. During the period of 79 to 97, Reeds Ferry Fire Station was used as the fire department's maintenance facility, housing a full-time firefighter mechanic. During 1998 timeframe, the firefighter mechanic was moved to the highway department, and a lot of that was due to his special training on emergency vehicles, and also the fact that he was working up there most of the time alone, which was not safe conditions. Okay. At that point, Station 3 was not staffed by full-time personnel, but remained in the call division. Okay. And over the years, the station maintenance was performed by the call division. As that call division started to dwindle and the volunteers dwindled, so did the people at that station and the maintenance at that station. 1999, Chief Hall requested monies from the Shed Harris Fund to repair the windows and doors and not replace, but repair, because a lot of them were cracked and leaking, and they did that. 2003, monies were used from the Shed Harris Fund to install emergency generators and exhaust primal vents in the system. And then in 2011, natural gas conversion took place in the station. So we have all new heaters and stuff in that station, so it was moving in the right direction.
Was that with the Shed Harris Fund?
Pardon?
The gas conversion, was
No,
that?
Shed Harris, the gas was done by Keyspan,
No, I
and
mean
it was
the
all
fund.
free.
Oh, it was free.
Yep, it was free. They put in, to change over from oil to natural gas, they put in heaters, exhaust systems, installed everything, and it works very well right now. Currently, with the station not staffed, Little Critters started calling that station home, okay? And we did make efforts to control the road, so it didn't start originally from the Flatley property. There was some, ongoing and increasing roads, because when you have a place that's not being used all the time, they start to move in, okay? And as that progressed, we ended up looking at that station to determine the needs of that station, what we were going to do with that station. We put in traps, we put in those water traps, all kinds of different mechanisms, and we determined that there was a lot of stuff stored there that basically was no longer needed, that was providing homes for these critters. So we went in there in 2018 and did a complete cleaning of that station. DPW was gracious enough to leave us some dump trucks, and we filled them full of stuff that was just not needed. How's that? Okay. And by doing that, it helped out a little bit. But with the construction site from Flatley also, that did increase, you know what I mean? Everybody, the field's being used now where I used to live, so I need to go where everybody else is living, in the condo at Reeds Ferry.
And where it's warm.
And where it's
with
warm
natural
and nice
gas.
heating, and so everybody moved in there, and what happened was some of the larger roads came in. We had a couple squirrels that we're trying to get rid of, and that's where we are. Okay, so to give you an idea of that, we have some photos. So this is the Reeds Ferry Station. I can say that once upon a time, this was a very active station with the call division. I know that. I was a lieutenant in the call division back in 1983. I think I started as a firefighter. Then 5 years later, I was promoted lieutenant, and that was my station. And we spent a lot of time doing maintenance in there, a lot of time painting and making it look good, and it served very well. Currently, right now, it's really in disrepair because it's not used as a man station, and it's just falling disrepair. And Station 1 and 2 of the bathroom areas, there's been leaks in not the roof, but the water pipes that were over top have failed, and we've been having some water issues. We've repaired those. And if you look
Did I
at
see some crime scene tape?
So
Go back one.
caution tape,
Okay.
Because that particular plumbing facility doesn't work.
so don't use it. That's what
do not cross.
Yeah, we have a dead squirrel there. No, just-
In the freezer.
in the freezer. If you look at pictures 1 and 2 here, these are the back of the station, and this area was where the mechanic bay used to be, and there was a mezzanine in there. There was all kinds of tools and equipment bolted to the walls. When that moved to the DPW, that all just got ripped out, and it was left in kind of a disarray type of a situation. Picture number 3 is the maintenance bay and that door. Number 4 is the overhead door for engine 3. It's just they just need some repair on those. Pretty much the little guys. 5 is the electrical system. It works fine and it's in good working order. It just needs some updates and upgrades in the fire alarm system and stuff there. We store emergency management equipment in there. If you look at picture number 1, those are the cots and stuff that we have. We kind of looked through those but didn't pull them out and I don't see anything living in them, but I can't guarantee that. They're up on tables and chairs now in the event that we have a water issue, that we don't destroy them. If you look at number 2, that's the roll carts. There's 3 of those in there that have like pillows and blankets and stuff in them if we have to open a shelter. Number 3, you can see where the lights were from the benches from the workshop that was there. The bars on the wall, we used to hang the metal rack from repairing, and everything was tore out, but things were just left that they didn't need. And if you look in front of that, there's looks like right next to the number 3, there's some bags there. Those are all our sandbags. There's a pallet of sandbags there. One thing that I don't know if I say lucky, that I made a phone call one of our last storms that we had many years ago, because the state doesn't provide sandbags anymore. And I knew that was coming. So my last ditch effort was to request a pallet full of sandbags, and they showed up, so we have enough for a few years to come. So we have to buy them, but in the future we will have to purchase those in the future. We use the station for storage for our picture number 1 is we have some of our props there that we use at our open house. We have training props there we use for firefighter bailout, for firefighter type of training that are constructed, and if we leave them outside, we'll just be building them over and over again. Number 3 is a trailer. We have 2 trailers in there right now. One that you see, and number 3 is our hazmat trailer, and the one in the back where you can see where the Merrimack is, that'll come up again. That's our special ops trailer, and that's used for special operations, building collapse, mass casualty. We had a grant to get equipment for mass casualty, and it's used for our EMS trailer. We use it, we installed a cot and everything in there. There's a command room, first aid area, and that goes to Rib Fest, that goes to the triathlon, and anybody that's not feeling well, faint, where they go in there, it's air conditioned. A lot of times we just need to calm them down, fix a boo-boo, and they're off. And if we need to, extend the medical, then we have an ambulance there and we transport. Number 1 here is the front of that trailer, I was asked once that why do we store trailers inside? Those trailers we have inside because they need to be kept heated. We have medical supplies in them, and those can't freeze. And then the hazmat trailer, we have decontamination supplies for biomedical. We have decontamination for chemical. We have decontamination for hydrocarbons. And we also have detection equipment for anything that you might call for possible poisons or identifying unknowns. And those things need to be kept in a temperature environment. So that's why those trailers are in there. In the wintertime, we use, in picture 1, you see Forestry 2 is there. That goes from Station 2 to Station 3 in the winter. And we do winterize the vehicle, but if you look at the vehicle, right now, there's no room at Station 2 for that vehicle, even in the summer, so it parks outside in a Quonset hut on the dirt. And as you can see, the white mirrors on it are starting, when you start parking vehicles outside on dirt, they just get beat up, okay? And that's where that one, you can see the wear and tear and the fading of the paint from sitting outside all the time. And picture number 2, again, there's some of our props for our open house, but we also store ladders in there, backup hose, and backup stretchers. They're kind of stuffed in there right now, but forestry's out, so we have a little bit more room because it's back at Station 2. But the stretchers we have to have because there are many times where we transport patients that max out the load of our stretchers and they do become bent or broken. And instead of taking the ambulance out of service, we end up taking the stretcher out of service, putting another stretcher in. The ambulance works again. We call our contractor to come in to fix the stretcher, and then we just keep rotating them around. So we have to have that area to store that type of equipment. This here is the hose damage. As you can see, number 1 is on the racks from the critters eating the hose or using it for nesting. And number 3 is the hose bed. That's in engine 3. So we were able to locate that and pull that and change that out. This was the brand new hose we just bought last year. Pardon? Put what in there?
Why, if you knew there were rodents in there that were chewing on things, why would you put brand new hose in there? I don't get that.
Because it was in the truck. We replaced all the hose. The old hose that failed, and then the new hose put in engine 1, 2, 3, and 4. They are all replaced. Again, that engine is in service, so it needs to have hose on it. And the next thing here is some of the breathing apparatus that were chewed by mice. If you look up top, there's engine 3. That was one of the mouse that made a home in one of the face pieces. And if you look at below, that's engine 1 face piece. That's been in multiple fires. And then to the right on diagram number 2, those are the nose cups, and you can see there where the mice chewed on that a little bit. That's all been replaced and repaired, and those masks have been taken off that truck and put in at Station 1 at this time. This is some of the building damage on the doors. You can see where there was penetrations on number 4 in the wall when there used to be oil heating in there. Number 2, on the side of the buildings where there's some holes. And number 5, that was all done by the representative from Critter Control. The pictures were provided to us as he went around the building trying to put a quote together of stuff that he had to repair or fix to prevent this from happening in the future. And number 3 is just the hose tower and some of the windows that need to be repaired there. We're looking at a cost for the road repaired about $16,200. And what they're saying is they will remove all rodents, fix any possible or potential openings for the future. They're going to guarantee that nothing's going to come in there anymore. They're going to guarantee it. Station decontamination, I don't know once we get the rodents out of there, we may have to put some money in decontaminating that station and cleaning it up. And then any repairs that you may have seen in some of the pictures, I don't know what that is, but we can look at that once we determine if we're going to eradicate the rodent problem and the need for that station in the future.
I have several questions for you, Chief. So my first question is, can you live without this station? And by what you're showing us as the equipment that's having to live there, I don't think you can.
My opinion as chief and the equipment that's in there, and to maintain the equipment in a usable and ready form and ready to go in the event, especially the hazmat trailer, no, that needs to be stored in that station.
Okay, so that answers that question. My next question is, in the past, you've gone to the, was it the Harris Shed Fund? The Shed Harris Fund, I'm sorry.
That was the Chief Hall and Chief Pepler that did that.
Is
I
there-
have not done anything with that.
And that one and the George Carroll Fund were set up for fire protection in Reed's Ferry. And as far as I know from the trustee of the funds, there is no specification there what it has to be used for other than for protection. Now, the storage of the equipment, in my mind, would constitute protection of the Reed's Ferry area. So why can't we go to the Shed Harris Fund for the $16,000? Has that been thought of or explored?
Yes, but again, I wanted to make sure that you got a look at what this building looked like, whether or not you felt that this building was a good idea to rehab, or whether you would prefer to buy some other kind of storage facility, garage type of thing, and put it on a different parcel like DPW or something like that. We're just getting into a lot of money. Now, we're just talking about rodents for $16,000. So, and it's an eyesore, but that's just my thoughts. So yes, you can take the money out of the Shed Harris, but again, I would, anytime any money is recommended to come out of any of these trust funds, I would come to you for it.
Mm-hmm. Because even if we decide, well, 16,000, how much further if we were going to actually replace the building, we would still have to leave it in the Reed's Ferry area. You'd have to leave it in that village area, wouldn't you? Because if you moved it down, say, to Sohegan, is it still protecting Reed's Ferry? Just a thought. But anyways, thank you for that, because I would, if we're going to keep and rehab the building, I would rather be using the trust fund versus the budget. My personal druthers on that one. That's what it's there for.
And Chief, I don't know if this directly, you can answer this, maybe Paul or Eileen. That's always struck me I mean, we're using what seems to me is a prime piece of commercial realty on Route 3 as a warehouse. I'm curious if you were to sell that building,
It's not our property.
it's not our property.
I don't believe it is, but it goes back. Goes back to sorry about that. The town, if we own it, we have to give it back. I don't think we own it. I think we're allowed to use it.
I don't think we own it.
That sounds familiar.
I think we might have gotten it from ChemFab,
Right,
No.
General Electric.
General Electric.
General Electric.
Yeah, and they're,
They're not around anymore.
well,
But the
I mean, we could look into that, but that, it was supposed to go back to somebody.
We need to look at
That sounds familiar.
Oh, sorry, Peter.
Thanks. It just strikes me that, I mean, if we research this and find out, you take the money from that sale and, and possibly use it towards a facility and a less valuable piece of property and set up a warehouse facility, an appropriate one for the equipment the chief is looking at here. And I'm also curious, Chief, does the number of the 16,000, I'm seeing eradication, but does that cover the cost of the equipment as well that you're gonna have to replace because of this?
Does not. That's for the quote from the company that's going to eradicate the critters and seal up the building and secure the building for any further infestations.
All right, so what's the number on the equipment we have to replace?
Paul indicated 1,200 use.
No, with the hose that we just bought last year and the hose we're buying this year, and I don't know I didn't know
Just the damage to
the
us.
damage to the mask. It could be anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 total.
Okay, thank you.
Bill?
Just a point of order, Mr. Chairman. The piece that you're referring to, the library, the Lowell Memorial Library, has a reciprocity clause in the estate that if the library ceases to be a library, it reverts back to the estate. I don't think that's applicable with the Reed's Ferry Station. I think that's separate altogether. But the library definitely, if that ever ceased to be a library, it reverts back to his estate.
Right. Again, I
I don't know
think,
if you're confusing things, but I just.
no, I do believe that, and it was General Electric. I believe it goes back, but that's something that could be looked into. Just to see, because I don't know, I don't remember the exact detail, because it's a long time ago. Peter?
So is this something that, and I know we're moving on, and this topic tonight is about the repairs, but is this something we should look at and ask the town manager and the finance administrator to take a look at and get us some research on, if this property can be sold, what are the legalities of it and so forth, and what would be the value of the properties if it could?
I think it would not be a bad idea to look into that. Eileen?
I think the value would probably only be to the abutting property for parking, for instance.
Homestead.
And I'm noticing, Chief, you shaking your head, and I'd be curious to see then how do you feel about what I'm saying and so forth on this? I mean, are you in agreement with it, disagree with it? I mean, I really do want to hear your opinion.
Wait, let me ask, before you answer, I want to talk to. So it's $16,000. It's a problem. If you go buy or build another building, that's going to cost you double or triple that money.
Oh, anyway.
And if you don't fix it, then what's to say that these critters aren't going to get into your $50,000 hazmat trailer? You guys are just prolonging the problem to worry about a piece of property that's going to be turned into a parking lot for Homestead or Gilbert Crossing. I would say just if you have the money, and you might have leftover money in your budget from this year to buy that $2,500 or $5,000 to spend on the hoses and whatnot, that's great. Or take it out of that fund. But I think it's just, instead of beating a dead horse, just fix it. That's just my opinion.
Hold your thoughts, if you don't mind.
And you'll be able to jump on which one you like the best. I guess I'm thinking, number one, I totally agree, it should be looked at to even know what our options are in terms of selling, whether that's a variable or not. I seem to think there's something as well. historically, I seem to remember there's some covenant or something on that. But let's assume that that's not possible. I totally agree with Tom. Let's just do it right. We've got the fund, clean it out, fix it up, and even make it look reasonably presentable. And go after and say, you want to have your apartments look at a very reasonable, what contribution do you want to add to it?
Right.
Okay? So I think based upon whether it's even eligible to sell, I mean, if it's not, that's the end of that discussion. And if that's the case, then let's just make the decision to fix it and fix it right, and we have a source of income. So let's do it right.
And I'm totally with you, because it's not even gonna just be 3 times the amount, unless you're putting one of those Quonset huts up, but you're right. I think the repairs are necessary. There's a guarantee to it, apparently, the chief has said. If there's a guarantee, then that's very much worth it then,
I mean,
because I don't have to worry about
realistically,
losing the product.
if you are in fact going to do it the right way, you empty out the whole damn thing, darn thing. You take the sinks out and stuff. You don't need bathroom facilities there. It's going to be storage. Leave the pipes in case you need it for the future, but you empty it all out. That's when you do all the critter cleaning and do all the holes and do your modifications that you need to do. And then when it's all fixed, you put everything back in. This nickel and diamond, you're just going to nickel and dime 5 more times.
Even though it's a storage facility, you have to have a bathroom in it, but we also have to understand too that the north end voter is in that building for police and fire communications.
Okay, then consolidate a little bit better.
Yep.
But I mean, just empty the whole thing out.
Chief, do you hang hose still?
Pardon?
Do they use the hose tower still?
Not very often.
So
no, we
instead of
don't.
replacing windows, is that something maybe that might come down, or?
I don't know if it'd be more dangerous to the building taking it down, but
that's what you
when we
pay
look at
someone
that,
to do.
we'll look at that and evaluate it. You know, to me, yeah, we can take it down, and then we'll have to, because I think the antenna's on top of that, so we might have to put up a tower
Okay,
there.
yeah. I thought I had heard at one point that that concrete block structure was having issues. But that might just have been in my
It's just not the safest
imagination.
thing to hang hose. Not a lot of people do it anymore. The new hose we buy now, you can use it and roll it, and we put it right back on the trucks because
Right.
it is certified to do
Oh,
that.
it's not the cloth.
We don't. Only time we don't put the hose back on the truck is if it was at a brush fire, a major fire, we got really dirty, where we hose it, wash it down with soap and water, rinse it off, and then it goes back on the truck. So the new modern hose today, you don't need to hang and dry stuff anymore. So to me, yes, if it can come down, I think that's the smartest thing to do for that tower, because it's only gonna get worse rather than better.
Right. All right, Chief. Yes?
So to cut to the chase, which is what I usually, I'm the backup. Let's do it. Let's first of all find out what the parameters are to the land, if there's any. Based upon that, come back to the council. And when you come back, if in fact we can't do anything with it, maybe we can have some preliminary ideas as to what would be involved in just, sprucing up that station. Not only eradicating the problem, but having a reasonable plan, not specifics, but parameters of what could be done to improve it as a site.
We have.
Because we can beat it to
We
death
have
now,
documentation
but-
from that were presented back to Chief Hall and back to Chief Pepler when he was here about some of the minor things that we could do to make that a more usable building, because the call division is not there anymore.
But you don't
And
know what you're gonna need in the future. You might
Correct.
as well make it a decent place and fix it up.
You're gonna need storage of equipment, so.
Right, minimally, yeah.
Right, and just to add on to Nancy, come back with, the estimates, and then we take that and look at getting that out of the Shed Harris Fund
Right.
and not out of the budget. 'Cause
That's what
that's
it's-
why it was
that's what it's there
donated to
for.
the town.
Right.
Let's use it, rather than let it sit there accruing.
How you guys feel about that?
Back to Peter's
As
question.
I started when
Back to
we
Peter's
started here,
question,
there,
yeah.
that building, a storage building for the equipment that we have and storing it inside is going to maintain that equipment for a longer period of time for the community, okay? And I'm a fan of trailers because they're easy maintenance and you hook a truck to it and pull it. If I have a hazmat incident, it's gone. You know what I mean? There's enough boom in there we've already used it for the Souhegan River when the Milford gas station dumped all that gas. We stopped it over at the, off Amherst Road and County Road. We collected it from that trailer. So we're
Well,
able
that's
to
why we
move it.
have,
So,
that's why we rehab the DPW, because
Yeah.
storage lengthens the life of equipment. So your justification's fine. I don't,
Okay, so we're all good? All right. Thanks, Chief. This will come back quickly, I'm sure. And then we'll make that decision at that point.
am I allowed to have 5 more minutes?
Are you allowed?
Yes.
Sure.
I just want to say one thing here, that this is not reference to to Station 3. This is reference to fires that we've been having in the community over the last year. I got on the Merrimack Fire Department in 1983, and I've dedicated my life, 20 years as a volunteer, and then a career to saving lives, property, and the environment for the people of the town of Merrimack. And I take that very seriously. All those 30 years that I've been in the department, we lost more lives in the last year than all that time due to fires. Okay, in the last year, we've lost 3 lives, three citizens from this community, and it bothers me a lot. And there were fires, structure fires. And it bothers me because they died because they didn't have working smoke detectors in the house. And if people are listening to me today, check your smoke detectors. It's very important. Change those batteries. It's very important. And understand that smoke detectors don't last forever, okay? I'm breaking up here because I care about you. I care about the citizens of this town. After 10 years, your smoke detector starts to fail, and you need to really start thinking about replacing those, okay? So seriously, 3 people died in the last 12 months. That's not acceptable. I'm fire chief. That's not acceptable. We have to do something better. So starting Monday, we'll be going on TV with a smoke detector campaign, okay, talking to the people. We've already sent Captain Bartel, took his crews out over the weekend, went to Shaw's on his last shift, and started educating people on smoke detectors and changing their batteries. They met everybody walking in and out of the building and talked to them and explained to them how important it is. Everybody's committed to saving lives in this department, everybody. And I want to make sure that the citizens know that this is important. Get your smoke detectors operating. If they're old, replace them. Get evacuation plan, and it's not a joke. We've lost too many people in 1 year. For the 30 years I've been on this department, and then the last year, that's not acceptable. It bothers me a lot. We need to move forward with this.
Yep, thank you very much, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Chief, just one thing, the folks, were they older folks? I know you can't give out too much or identify, but were they older citizens? I'm sorry?
Yeah, what is older?
How do you define older
Well,
now? that we're
yeah, it's a
older?
loaded question, but somebody elderly, somebody that,
Let's just say, I'm going to give you a range between 50 and 70.
okay, because, and the only reason we're going to bring it up is because you've got a Meals on Wheels, that works out of the senior center there, and they deal with a lot of those folks, and maybe a rep from the.
We're going to the
the,
senior center. We have plans set up. We're going to start talking. And hopefully we can get all your ideas and the Meals on Wheels, because I'm going to take that. Well, C3 is going to take that and move that
great
forward.
idea.
Because we have to, we have to stand down. We have to have a campaign here, a campaign to make sure people understand that smoke detectors save lives. They do.
Yep, no, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Peter. All right,
don't get schools.
They're all
Get the
involved.
kids, you get the
Yep.
parents.
Yeah, exactly.
thanks, gentlemen. We
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
very much.
All righty. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, March 13th and March 28th of 2019.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Town Council special session minutes of Wednesday, March 13th, 2019, be approved with the following changes.
Second, with the changes.
Thank you. At the lower right-hand corner of page 1, it should read page 1 of 2, not 1 of 1. And likewise, on page 2, it should not read page 1 of 1, but 2 of 2.
You are awesome, Billy.
I amaze myself.
All right. Is anything further?
Those are the changes.
You caught it too?
No.
All right. If there's nothing further, all those in favor of the minutes of March 13th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 600.
Mr. Chairman, I move the town council meeting minutes of Thursday, March 28, 2019, with the following modifications.
I'll do second.
I'm getting there. On page 6, line 15, I don't think his name was Bed.
No, it wasn't. Ben.
On page 8, line 39, Mr. Hefner's name has an E in it. It's Heavener. And Brienne Drive is spelt with an I, not an E.
What line are you on?
Line 39, page 8. Page 8, line 39. Instead of Hefner, it should be Heavener.
Instead of A, it should be I.
On page 11, line 32, the word is abatement, not abetment. On page 14, line 44, pilot should be capital letters. And then there's parentheses so that it reads payment in lieu of taxes in the parentheses. Pilot is an acronym for payment in lieu of taxes. Page 15, line 20, the first line of the sentence reads, if applying for an exemption, they were provided it, it should be providing it. I am channeling Strunk and White today. And on page 17, line 30, remove the word special because there was a regularly scheduled town council meeting. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Boyd. Barbara?
On page 2.
Oh, you stink.
You what?
This is a competition now.
On page 2, line 41, he was loved by those in the department, was a jokester and avid outdoorsman. It just reads better.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
Excellent. Sina? Yes.
We're not done yet.
Is there anything further on the minutes? I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 501 with Tom Thornton abstaining. Comments from the press? Comments from the public? Comments from the council? Councilor Boyd?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of things. First off, I want to thank the 80-some-odd attendees, the Department of Environmental Services, the Department of Health and Human Services for putting on a wonderful health fair last week. It was good to see Councilor Healing in attendance. I don't know if did I see you there?
You did not.
I did not. I thought I did. I'll have to get my glasses checked.
Thanks for putting me on the
Councilor
spot, by the
Koenig,
way.
thank you. Councilor Koenig was there.
I wasn't there either.
Okay, so, but in fairness, it was a very good event. It was very well attended. I want to thank the legislative delegation for being there, the Merrimack Citizens for Clean Water. Also had a table there. I want to thank them for their participation, and I think for the amount of work that was put into it, with both Representative Murphy and myself participating in that process. I think to get 80 people to show up on a given night to participate was just amazing. So it was a great evening. I had some takeaways. I learned a lot, and it was certainly was a tremendous value of time that was put into the event. So thank you very much to all those people that came out, and thank you to Representative Murphy and to all of the vendors that were at the event, both independently with the hospitals and with DES and Health and Human Services. I want to thank the voters in the town of Merrimack for approving that wastewater bond on Tuesday. There was a lot of things on the ballot for both the school board and obviously the municipal side of the ledger, but that was a critical piece of infrastructure that needed to be updated. So I really want to thank the 3,000 some odd voters that came out on Tuesday that affirmatively voted for that bond. I do want to thank you for showing a lot of confidence, not only in this council's ability to put that to the ballot, but the team that we have in place in wastewater, specifically Sarita Carucci and her team there, and the amount of education that went into it. So I really want to thank the voters for that. Go Bruins, go Celtics. I'm going to get that out of the way. And I don't know what we're going to do, but I'm going to start off. Tom, thank you very much for your leadership, your stewardship. I'm very sorry to see you go. I know that we were on the opposite end of issues every now and then, but I could never criticize you for not doing your homework. You did. The level of due diligence that you brought to every particular discussion, especially both budget cycles, tremendous value that you brought to this council and to the listening audience. So I wish you, Jen, and your family nothing but health and happiness in the future, and I certainly hope that when circumstances change, that you would consider putting your name on the ballot here, because you do bring a lot to the council. And I know I'll be seeing you out in the community, because MYA is not going away anytime soon, and I know the amount of time you put into that organization there as well. So on behalf of Michelle and Jade, thank you very much for serving on the council. It was a pleasure to work with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bill. Nancy?
I just want to thank you for being my table mate and getting me in trouble all the time, but also by taking care of my,
Your button.
my button. We're going to have to train the next person who sits here to take care of the.
It wasn't me.
Well, it's a combination of
Oh,
the two
gosh,
of you.
yes.
When I was sitting in that seat, there was always this jibber jabber over here, and now I
It's so
understand.
true.
It is true, isn't it? Anyway, but I just want to let you know that I respect you, and I have appreciated the time you've been here. And as Bill has said, that in the future, as your time becomes available and you get older like us, you'll have more time
Absolutely.
as your children grow in the availability. But I also know you're going to keep abreast of things, because that is who you are. And I would appreciate any, as you watch the meeting, which you will on occasion, when you can't sleep well, you'll watch the,
With a gin and tonic.
say, you poor guys. Call me or email me or any one of us.
Absolutely.
And express your opinion to us, because I do honor your opinion. And it's always not necessarily been like my opinion not, but that's okay, because it always added a perspective that I think was very useful to the council. So I thank you very much, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Peter.
Tom, thank you. I've known you a long time, and you've always been involved in the community, from MYA and softball and everything else, and coaching your kids. And it's been a pleasure having you on here, and what you brought to the diversity of this council. That's great. And also, please thank Jen and the boys for sharing you with us and taking that time and sacrificing to be here. I know you're busy, and I know you're dedicated to your family. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Barbara, yes.
Well, I haven't known you that long,
Lucky you.
but it was great sharing the middle school with you for the elections, and thank you for everything you taught me while we were there about the whole process and the overviews. And I'm going to miss you giving me the hairy eyeball over there.
Yes. And I know how tough it is when you have young kids. My babies are all grown now, so it's much easier for me. But having young kids and a job that has you traveling to the backwoods of Maine and everything, it definitely complicates things. But it's been wonderful having you on board. We've definitely enjoyed it. It will be a quiet corner, though, I'm sure. It's,
We'll find out we're gonna find out who the real culprit
Right,
is.
right, 'cause if it
If
continues, then we know.
we know what the variable, who's the constant.
so,
I
we-
don't think so.
We'll see.
so I absolutely appreciate everything you've brought to the council and in general, the community. And thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thanks to everyone here. Like Nancy said, you got to sit behind, you have to sit on this side to appreciate everything that Eileen and Paul and all you guys, we do. And once you sit behind here, you get it, you understand it. And it's a lot of work, but I mean, this town is run so well. It really is. And it's been a pleasure with all you guys, being here. I learned a lot. I was with the MYA for a long time. I was with Parks and Rec. I was with the town council now. And yeah, when things do calm down, I got 2 going to college, so my oldest is going to be a junior. He's going away, and my middle one's going to be a senior. He's going to UNE to play football. So, and then I have Jack, my little one. He's, he'd be I'll give him a lot of attention. But yeah, it is a lot. My job is a lot, and and I will definitely be in touch and stay in contact, and I will at some point, we'll be back. So, but thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Wonderful.
Go ahead, Tom.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion by Councilor Thornton, seconded by Councilor Boyd. All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Opposed, abstained, 600. Thank you, everybody.